Thank you very much, Eva. Thank you, Professor Liakopoulos. Thank you, Professor Stefanidis, dear colleagues. My today talk deals with could incremental hemodialysis be a new standard of care? This is a proposal, and I would be very happy if you agree with me at the end of my talk. How to move on? Okay. I would like to start showing this slide that shows that I am a little bit Greek. Actually, my town is this one, Tarentum, and it belongs to the Magna Graecia, the Megali Ellada, and you can see that Greek had many colonies in the southern of Italy, starting from Campania, Apulia, my country, Lucania, and Sicily. But I would like to go further on, showing what is Taranto, Taras, my town. It was founded by Spartans in the 8th century before Christ. And they called the city Taras after the mythical hero Taras. Taranto was among the most important polis in Megali Ellada, became a cultural, economic, and military power. By 500 before Christ, the city was among the largest in the world, with a population estimated to be up to 300,000 people. Now, I don't know, what are you to do? Okay. Now, coming to the topic, the today topic, we wrote this review some years ago with Kamkalantarzadeh and Frank Casino, and we stated 3 points, essential points. Most people who make the transition to maintenance dialysis therapy are treated with a fixed dose of thrice-weekly dialysis regimen without considering the residual kidney function, the RKF. Although the regulatory agencies might consider thrice-weekly regimen as standard of care and adequate requirement, it is by no means perfect. The thrice-weekly regimen has been assumed until recently almost as a dogma in the dialysis community. It has been widely accepted, incredibly, without never undergoing any randomized controlled trial. Thrice-weekly dialysis has never been, it never underwent any randomized control study to examine whether less frequent hemodialysis regimen treatment, hemodialysis treatment would be inadequate or harmful. I want to show this, I would say, very important slide that shows early mortality is very high in the first 6-12 months after initiating dialysis. When looking at this slide, we can see that the standardized mortality rate is very high in the first 6 months after starting dialysis, and then is virtually the same. But you see how higher is the mortality in the first 6 months. Now, another point, very important point, is the frequent hemodialysis regime may result in loss of RKF, residual kidney function, and this has been shown very clearly in this paper from Dogirdas, KI, 10 years ago, and they showed that the data from frequent hemodialysis network in the frequent dialysis group, urine volume declined to 0 in 52 and 67% of patients at month 4 and 12, respectively, compared with 18 and 36% in controls. Another very important point is this one coming from a very important group from UK, that of Farrington. And they showed that residual kidney function is a key predictor of outcomes in dialysis. But look at this point, the first one. If you have, at 6 months after starting dialysis, a kidney urea clearance, KRU, equal or more than 1 milliliter per minute, this makes a large difference if you have, at 6 months after starting dialysis, less than 1 milliliter per minute of kidney urea clearance. So what is incremental dialysis? It aims to provide the required amount of dialysis at the right time based on residual kidney function, is based on stepwise or incremental increase in dialysis as RKF falls, is based on the premise that a gradual increase in dialysis dose may preserve residual kidney function, and it aims to reduce the shock of starting dialysis and reduce exposure to the harmful effects of dialysis. So, summarizing, the possible benefits of incremental hemodialysis may be less exposure, as I said before, to harmful effects of hemodialysis, less usage of vascular access, then less complication, gentle start of dialysis in the early period in which mortality is high, so it means dialysis-free time, and reducing dialysis frequency can allow to dialyze others more frequently. Evidently, quality of life is improved. There is a less burden of treatment, less exposure to aggressive attempts at ultrafiltration, and evidently lower therapy cost. And there are very interesting observational studies that show that twice-a-week dialysis is very safe if the kidney urea clearance, I show you, is KRU, is above 3 milliliters per minute, 1.73 square meter of body surface area. If you look at the first part of this slide, I cannot, this does not work very well. No, sorry. Okay. The pointer is not working very well. Okay. There is a large difference in the hazard ratio, cause that if you have, you can see here, there is another pointer. If you have more than, 6 milliliters per minute of kidney urea clearance, and the survival is much higher than if you have between 3 and 6, and much higher if you have less than 3 milliliters per minute. And the safety of incremental hemodialysis for twice-a-week dialysis with a KRU more than 3 milliliters per minute is also shown in this slide, coming from the group of Kalantarzadeh, the group of, Villar, Stonehenge, Farrington. It shows that if you have, when on twice a week dialysis, more than 3 milliliters per minute of kidney urea clearance, you can have a hazard ratio for that 0.76 compared with people dialyzed 3 times a week. And this paper comes from Spain, and it shows that there is a slower loss of kidney function in twice a week dialysis compared to thrice a week dialysis. You can see the large difference in decrease of kidney function when you dialyze twice a week. And this comes from Asia, is about the urine volume. At the start, people on twice a week and thrice a week have the same urine output as shown here. At the end of 18 months, the people dialyzed twice a week have more than the double than those dialyzed on thrice a week. And this is my personal experience, long-lasting experience. Is a retrospective study, and we included in this retrospective study 202 people. There is a prevalence of male, yes, and if we look at the start of dialysis, they have a mean of 8 milligrams per deciliter of creatinine, a creatinine clearance of 8 milliliters per minute, and kidney urea clearance of 4.5. But I want to point these 3 last figures. We could start patients on once a week dialysis in about 58% of patients. 58% could start with once a week dialysis, and 22.8% started with twice a week. It means that we started dialysis with an incremental way in more than 80% of patients. This is the Charlson Comorbidity Index, 6.9. And what is the duration of dialysis treatments in the 3 groups of patients? What about the incremental dialysis once a week? As a mean, they remained, this 58%, about 1 year once a week. And they were transferred to twice a week, and they got another 13 months. And what about those that started with twice a week? They started and remained in this way of treatment for about 16 months. Now the results. This is, as I told you, a retrospective study, but it is very clear that the time to event, it means time to anuria, as urine output equal to or less than 200, there is a clear difference when they are treated by once a week compared to twice a week or thrice a week. You can see here the log rank is in favor of once a week. But more importantly, what about the survival of these patients? This is not statistically significant, but there is a trend, as you can see, that people treated once a week have a better survival compared to twice a week and thrice a week. As I told you, these are observational studies. There are only 2 published studies, RCT, coming in the literature. The first one comes from the group of Farrington, Villar, published last year in Kidney International, and it shows a trend towards slower decline in RKF, not significant though, but I think it's a very, very bad paper published in KI because the sample size was incredibly 26 people on conventional dialysis and 29 on twice a week. I don't understand why it can be accepted in Kidney International. The other paper comes from Kamakalantarzadeh that works with a Romanian lady, Murea, and this is a twice-a-week study, 2+ study. There is also a trend in this, in the hospitalization when comparing twice-a-week versus thrice-a-week dialysis. And here I want to make a very clear point, being, as probably you have understood, I am the chair of the UDL working group of ERA, and we published this year this paper, and we clearly stated this sentence: the quest for a reliable dialysis adequacy index / criteria has been a constant feature through the decades in dialysis. While agreeing that evaluating dialysis adequacy should not rely on a single index, we would like to point out the need to keep urea kinetic model, UKM, as the gold standard, as it is the only established tool for assessing and prescribing dialysis. I know there is a large controversy, but the only tool until now for assessing and prescribing dialysis is through the urea kinetic model. So its reference solute is urea, and this is, how to say, assured by the KDOQI guidelines published in AJKD 2015 and by our society published in 2002. Now, how we can measure which are the common methods of performing calculations for incremental hemodialysis. As I told before, the residual kidney function, and so by transferring it to the urea kinetic model, kidney urea clearance are very important. So according to these very important papers coming from Goch and Augirdas, the standard KTV, the total one, is the summing up of the renal kidney urea clearance and urea dialyzed through the dialysis. But there is another common method of performing calculations from incremental hemodialysis. And this originates from a seminal paper coming from two friends of mine, Franco Casino and Lopez, who work in Matera. This was published in NDT 28 years ago, and they were able to transform the intermittent dialysis clearance. You know, the KT over V is related to the single dialysis. They were able to convert the intermittent dialysis clearance to an equivalent continuous dialysis clearance they called equivalent continuous renal dialysis. And so if you transform the urea dialyzed as a continuous clearance, and if you add to this, the native kidney urea clearance, you arrive to this. The total EKR is the summing gap of the continuous clearance given by the dialysis and the clearance given by the native kidneys. And this is really testified by the assumption of this continuous renal clearance by Casino and Lopez as a guideline for the European community. The guideline 2.3 says, in the case of significant residual renal function, the amount of therapy to be delivered with hemodialysis may be estimated with the aid of the equivalent renal clearance. The evidence level is B. And I want to show you, I'm sorry, Vasilius is not here now, we were able to publish this very interesting paper 3 weeks ago on behalf of the European Renal Association that says how to prescribe the dialysis dose and the treatment frequency. And the following slide shows how easy it is to have a prescription graph. Is the rule of thumb. You look at this prescription graph and you can decide according to the kidney urea clearance to have your patients on once a week, twice a week, or thrice a week. Now, I showed you before the two randomized controlled trial published since now, one coming from Villar, UK, the other in the States. As I am aware, there are at least five randomized controls which are undergoing. The first one I want to show you is this one. This is a Spanish study in which Franco Casino and myself are involved, and the control arm is thrice a week. They start with once a week, then twice a week, and twice a week per criteria. The primary outcome is patient survival. The other randomized controlled trial is that the ERA, through the UDL working group, has started last year. We have enrolled now, until now, 50 patients. The design is exactly as the Spanish study. The difference is the primary outcome, time to anuria versus patient survival. And this is the name of this randomized study. Real life is the acronym of Randomized Clinical Trial on the Efficacy and Safety of Incremental Hemodialysis, and is based, as I said before, on this, follow-up. We start with once a week. If we have a kidney urea clearance, I would say around 5, fixing the dialysis dose as single pool KTV of 1.2, when we move it to twice a week and then to thrice a week. Now, I'm going to the final slides. Which are the educational aspects of incremental dialysis? It requires patients to have education in importance of the individualized therapy and an acceptance that dialysis intensity may have to be increased in future. Patient education in accurate measurement of residual kidney function, investment of time needed in pre-dialysis education stage, requires staff education, clear and consistent messaging, requires investment of staff time in measurement of residual kidney function. We have to measure each month the urine output and so measure the kidney urea clearance. Requires investment of staff time in measurement of residual kidney function and dialysis dose, and you can do this with the prescription graph we published 3 weeks ago in MDT. Now, summarizing. Summary 1. Growing interest in incremental hemodialysis, which was previously a minority sport. SARS-CoV-2 has drawn attention to benefits of less frequent dialysis regime. In hemodialysis, there are complexities with combining dialysis dose with residual kidney function, but as I showed you, tools have been developed to facilitate this. My last slide, retrospective data suggests residual kidney function may be lost less quickly if dialysis is initiated less frequently than 3 times a week. Prospective data from RCTs do not indicate any signal of harm and may indicate incremental hemodialysis has protective effect for residual kidney function. Definitive data from RCTs are required to define the benefits of incremental hemodialysis. Patient and staff education are a key aspect of a successful incremental dialysis program. And when thanking you, I would conclude with a Roman poet, Martialis, who lived 22 centuries ago, and he said, the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new lands, but in having new eyes. Thank you very much.